Welcome to the Sports Sesh podcast. I'm your host, Mason Shotwell, and my co-host is James Evans. And we've got James back today, and no disrespect, James, but we've got someone a bit more interesting than yourself. We've got Darrick Minner on. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you guys?
I'm doing very well. Before we jump into it, I just want to congratulate you on your recent win over at UFC Vegas 19. What a performance.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
What was the game plan going into that fight?
Did you watch the fight?
Yeah.
Exactly what happened, man.
Exactly how it went.
It went to pretty much the T. I mean, on the feet, we knew I was better. On the wrestling, I knew I was better. In ground, I knew I was better. But, like, I tagged him a lot on the feet, and I was thinking that was kind of shocking, how dazed he got, and the dropping him and stuff like that. But other than that, man, everything was according to plan, exactly what James Krause and myself wanted.
Well, while the fight was happening, I was watching. I was thinking, this is a really dominant fight on your behalf. And then when he went to the judges, and I think two judges gave it 30-26, and then one gave it 29-28. I think the only round they could have possibly gave was the third round. But even then, I still don't think Charles got that round. But was you positive that you was going to get the decision win that dominantly, though?
Yeah, man. I always expect to go in there and dominate. I always expect to go and dominate for 3 rounds, and, it hasn't been that way. That was only my 4th decision in my career. But there's no way that judge, I think it's Chris Lee, he screwed up a lot of scorecards in the past, man. That's ridiculous. The only time he had the advantage, I mean, he got one armbar that he went for. He was going through a submission attempt. He was in survival mode the whole time. And the last 10 seconds of me screaming and him elbowing me, like, you're going to give him the last 10 seconds as a win of the round. I was screaming, like, in joy, man. Like, maybe I should have moved and got on top and finished it that way. But the thing was, like, I already knew that the decision was in the bag. And the last 10 seconds, I heard that bell, and I was like, I'm not moving. I'm not risking nothing and whatever. So, yeah, that's ridiculous, man. I mean, how you give him one round is ridiculous.
When it comes to these sort of fights whereby you alluded to just then, you've only had a couple of decisions in your whole professional career. Mm-hmm. When it goes to the judges' scorecards, even though obviously we saw against Charles Rosa, you were dominant from start to finish, do you still have those jitters at the back of your spine thinking maybe the judges are going to give it to the opponent despite the full dominance from 1 to 50 minutes?
No, I didn't. Not especially that. There was not that I lost this fight any amount of, what I mean? Like, I didn't even, there was no way he even got around, man, even though one judge scored. But, like, that just goes to show you how, like, a judge could screw up a close fight, It's ridiculous, if that was, like, an even closer fight and you're going to screw up because I won the 3rd round, like, come on, man. Like, it is what it is, but, yeah, we got the win. There was no doubt when that bell rang at the end of the 3rd round that I had won.
Well, you touched on a minute ago that, you mentioned James Krause, and with him being in your corner that night, what benefits has training with James and having him as your coach and training at Glory MMA Fitness had on you? What benefits?
Man, it's just, grinding every day, and then in the building, like, everything, it's I'm building again on my skill set mentally with my fight IQ. I think, physically and mentally, I'm growing in this sport. And, I feel like I just touched the surface. Even though I'm 37 fights in, I just feel like I just touched the surface of my career. So, yeah, man, he's he guided me right through the fight. That's exactly what a corner's supposed to do, exactly what a coach is supposed to do, is exactly how he played that fight and plays every fight. He's one of the best in the game for sure.
I'm sure you've worked with different coaches throughout your career. What benefits does James have over the other guys?
Is his fight IQ and how much, all coaches really care, but like he really, really, that's like his life is that, is coaching, is MMA, and coaching comes before his fight career. He'll tell everybody that. And like, it just shows in the room, like his he's the general in the room, and we just follow suit, and obviously it pays off, man. He cares a lot, and he hates to lose as much as we do. So, it definitely shows, and the dude's fight IQ is out the roof.
You're on a 2-fight winning streak right now, and obviously the confidence must be through the roof. What are your plans for the rest of 2021? Because given this sort of global pandemic, nobody knows what's going to happen around the corner.
Man, well, I mean, if it's in my control, I want 2 to 3 more fights. And by the end of the year, have a top 15 opponent, you know, whether it's in the beginning of next year or whatever. Yeah, man, just stay on the grind and keep getting better. That's the only thing that I can control. And yeah, man, whatever they offer me, we'll take, and we'll keep winning fights.
Do you have an opponent in mind that you'd like to step in there with next?
Nah, man, I don't care, man. I have to go through them all, you know, to get to the top. But, you know, a few names that I've seen that people want to see is obviously the Chase Hooper. People are talking about that, maybe because he's 2-1 and he's decent on the ground. I mean, that would be a fun one. I hope to God they give me that fight. That would be awesome. And then they said somebody was talking about Darren Elkins. That would be a fun fight, man. The dude's a vet. I've been watching him for years. That would be fun. I don't think, you know, people talk about the Bryce Mitchell fight a lot just because of the Charles Rosa's ass beating we did, you know, but we both had one-sided fights and we both controlled it. But I think he deserves a top 15 opponent, you know, and I wouldn't chase that fight just because I know that he deserves a top 15 opponent. If they wanted to give it to me and they're like, oh, take this. I mean, obviously he's a ranked opponent. I'm down for it. But other than that, yeah, man, it's whoever they bring to the table.
Well, with it being after the fight, I'm sure you could talk about it now. What weaknesses did you see in Charles Rosa's game before you stepped in the cage?
Before he stepped in the cage, man, like sometimes, you know, he just accepts that he trusts in his jiu-jitsu, and his jiu-jitsu game is good, man. Like, I had to be on my toes the whole fight, and he's tough as nails, bro. Like, you know, he's good. I think I took him out of his element a bit with my striking right away, and then everything fell into place. But that dude, I mean, he kept me on my toes the whole fight with his off his back, and you know, he's just tough, man. Like, there's no like. I felt comfortable in that fight, but like he made me feel uncomfortable a lot, just like how good his guard is and stuff like that. Obviously, I controlled him, but yeah, man, he's good, man. You know, I just exposed a little bit of, you know, taking him down, and like I don't think I exposed him. I feel like I'm just that much better at top pressure than what I was given credit. You know, everybody like was counting me out and doing that, but I just feel like I'm better than the majority of these guys. It's not taking nothing away from him because he's obviously his 3 other losses. I think he has 3 other losses or something. They're all ranked guys. So I mean, obviously he's doing something, and they're all split decision losses besides Bryce Mitchell. So. Yeah, man. I feel like it was the benefits of me, not so much of what he did wrong.
Well, in between each round, how beneficial was the advice that James was giving you?
Man, he just kept my head in the game, man. Like like I said, I've a lot of fights, but a lot of fights have been ended in the first and second round. You know, the majority of them ended in the first, and especially my wins. And I've had a lot of. The thing is, like, if you look back at it, like a lot of my losses, like. Charles Rosa is like my kryptonite, like that type of style where they're super good off their back and they're tough and they can take a beating and all that stuff. So, because I've been there before where I beat somebody up for a whole round and then all of a sudden I get complacent and I get comfortable and I get something stupid locked up and I get submitted, you know, you take it back to the, Herbert Burns fight where I took his back, I was beating him up and all that stuff. And then I just got complacent just because for whatever I didn't stick to the game plan. And so James is super good at keeping you focused, keeping you on the game plan, and yeah, man, giving you great advice. So he definitely kept me focused for sure.
As you mentioned, you've got losses on your record. Each loss is a learning curve, but in the moment, how do you handle the defeat and then getting back into training?
I mean, if you go back and look at my record, I mean, the way I handle defeat is to get a fight lined up right away. You know, that was my whole thing in my whole career. If I lost, like, I just want to fight again. I just want to get that shit out of the way, get it in the back of my mind and get a win. But yeah, man, like I tell my brothers and some of the guys I coach up here in Omaha is you get 24 to 48 hours to soak on it. But what is it going to do to keep your head held low and mope around for a couple weeks? And, you know, it can ruin somebody because you never know what opportunities can present themselves. And so, like, I'd be down about it because the majority of those fights I was winning decisively. I was, you know, controlling the whole fight, and then I would just get caught. So you get 48 hours, and then you got to go back to the grind because this grind waits for nobody.
You've mentioned a couple of names there, and I know you said that you'll take whatever you can get from the UFC. But in recent times, what sort of featherweight or which featherweight contender has stood out for you in recent times?
Like which featherweight right now just stands out? As far
just
as like
in general.
In general, like, man, I feel like Max Holloway won that second or third fight with Volkanovski. I think Brian Ortega is going to be a monster. I think he's going to be trouble for Volkanovski. I mean, I have him winning the next fight. He really stood out in that his last performance with Korean Zombie. Obviously, Bryce Mitchell, man, the dude's a stud on the ground. You know, just guys like that, man. You know, as far as like guys like me, like Julian Erosa, man, he's my good buddy. And watching that dude kind of come up, you know, he's had his third tincture in the UFC, and now he's won his last two, you know. And it's cool to see guys that have that many fights and that never give up, kind of like myself, and keep winning, you know. So, yeah, bro, like there's a lot of guys that have impressed, but those are the guys that have stood out to me.
With you being in the featherweight division and with me and James being Brits, a name that springs to my mind is England's Lerone Murphy. Would that be a fight that would interest you? I
mean, whatever. Yeah, if they want it. You know, like I think I've watched him fight once, but I've never really like watched him real close. I mean, he was good. So yeah, I mean, if they presented that, I mean, I'm down. You know, it is. You know, you got to go through them all to get to the top, man. This is the fighting business, man. You know, so.
I'm gonna go back to the beginning. How did you first get started in the sport?
Man. So in 2010, I wrestled 1 year in college, and then in 2010, I had watched my buddy, one of my high school friends, fight in high school at when I was 14, 15. A guy named Anthony Smith, and he was fighting. We'd go up and watch him at the local bars and shit up here in Omaha, and he would go in there, he'd scrap, and man, I was always man, I want to try that one day. And a lot of the dudes from my generation of district wrestling and local high school wrestlers, they all did it. So I always wanted to try it. And then after I was done with my 1 year in college, I came back, and one of my random buddies, while we were just hanging out, and he was guy that you never think would fight. He's man, I want to go try this one time in South Dakota. I was shit, I'll go. Let's go. You know, I'll go sign up. And so that was right when you could just walk in and sign up pretty much. And so we went up there. Me and him, drove up there, cornered each other, didn't know what the hell we were doing. I never trained before. I'd wrestled my whole life, and I fought. And, yeah, man, I fell in love with it, and here we are today, you know, a lot of fights later.
You've had countless of professional fights under your belt. How important is the mental factor in MMA, personally, from your perspective?
Man, you just got to surround yourself with positive people that believe in you, and you'll go a lot further, because you can't just have somebody all day being negative to you, or whether it's at home, whether it's coaches, whether it's teammates or whatever, man, because man, this is a hardy, mentally stressed job enough, especially when you're doing it for a living. And, you know, I mean, what other job does it rely on your performance to get half your check, you know? And so it's huge, man. Just having the right people in your corner, having the right team behind you, having the right coaches, having the right home life, everybody just that believes in you, you know. And I've been lucky enough to have a lot of people in my life that believed in me. You know, it took me a long time to get here. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool to see.
I'm always interested to ask fathers this who are fighters. I know you've got a daughter, say 10 to 15 years time, she comes to you and says, Dad, I want to do what you do. Would you try and sway her away from that decision, or would you support 100%?
Man, it just depends. I plan on, you know, I got a 5-year-old stepdaughter too. And I plan on her coming actually today for her first class, in MMA jiu-jitsu. So, yeah, man, I'd like to have them know that, obviously, you know, in today's world, you can never be too safe. You need some type of martial arts, some type of, especially for females, you know? And so, yeah, man, if she's that good and she wants to do it, I'm down, you know, it's a lot of times as you think of I fight so they don't have to, you know, to build a future for them. But, you know, you never know what they're going to do. I'm down with them following whatever they want to do when they grow up, you know.
Who's been the biggest inspiration in your career so far?
Man, I can't even really pinpoint that, you know, as far as inspirations, different times throughout my career. Different times throughout my career, I've had different people that it's been inspirations to me, you know, it's a lot of people, you know. But first off, like when I was younger and I just started out, my grandma, before she passed away, she always believed in me. She always knew I could do it. She was 60-some years old, would come to my fights and watch me, you know, and then pass on to some of my coaches that I've been with, you know, like Joe Ellenberger, Ryan Jensen, you know, guys like that. And, you know, all those guys are still in my corner. My manager, Train, he definitely keeps me motivated. The biggest inspiration are the people that keep you motivated, people that keep you on the right track, people that believe in you, you know. And, you know, I've had a lot throughout my life. And, you know, obviously I added guys down at Glory MMA and James Krause in that corner, you know. And so, yeah, man, I get inspired by a lot of people in this game for sure.
Well, you mentioned again Glory MMA and James Krause. With what James Krause is doing with Glory MMA at the minute, there's some great athletes coming out of there. Yourself, Jason Witt, Julian Marquez, Megan Anderson, who's fighting the greatest women's fighter of all time in Amanda Nunes at the weekend. How important is it to have these type of training partners to train with day in and day out?
Man, it's huge because everybody's got the same goals, you know, especially on that, you know, I think there's 14 guys in the UFC in there, and plus not including the up and comers and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, the variety of training partners, the variety of, like, you know, getting ideas from everybody and just like grinding every day alongside each other and just all with one common goal. And that's at the end of the day to win fights. And, you know, James he keeps a great atmosphere, man. Like, it's a culture down there. It's different than a lot of places I've been.
Have you had to make any sort of sacrifices to reach the pinnacle of the sport?
Man, I haven't had a life for 10 years. You know, like this is all I've done for 10 years. You know, I've sacrificed a lot as far as, like, you know, growing up, you know, the first years of you're sacrificing a lot. You're broke, you're poor. I mean, we still don't make that much, but still, like, especially on the local scene, you don't make that much. I've just been lucky enough to have the sponsors and the supporters I've had. And, you know, I haven't really had a home life, like, as not a home life, but like as like going out and like social life for a long time, you know, maybe every once in a while, but not like you watch all my friends and like what I went to high school with and all that stuff. Like, they're always going out and doing all that stuff. But, you know, I never really drank after I started this, and I haven't did that I haven't drank at all since 2015. So it's like, you know, you just slowly make sacrifices to get the pinnacle of the sport, and it pays off, you know.
Well, the ultimate pinnacle of the sport will obviously be the UFC title, which I'm sure is going to be within your aspirations. Is there a time frame you want to do that by, and a time frame with how long you want to keep on fighting?
Man, as long as my body holds up, I'll keep on moving, keep on trucking forward. Like I said, I feel like I'm just getting in my prime. I feel like I'm just moving forward. And if I have to, you know, I have a lot of fight, man. If I have to go through the grinder to get there, if I have to have, you know, go 12-1 to get there, that's fine with me. You know, I'm not in a rush. I'm keeping improving. And if it happens in 2, 3, 4 years, you know, that's fine with me. You know, like, that's all obviously the ultimate goal, but yeah, you just keep winning fights and have these mini goals and alongside those.
Within MMA, there's many different factors. You've got your jiu-jitsu, your wrestling, your boxing. What would you say is the most important physical attribute within MMA?
Wrestling is the most important martial art, and MMA controls everything.
100%. I've spoken to a hell of a lot of fighters who say the same thing. Would you say the physical aspect is just as important as the mental, or would you say the mental overcomes that?
Man, it just depends. I mean, if you're grinding and training every day and you're doing what you're supposed to, obviously that's the most important. You can't just, you have to be in shape. You have to keep learning and improving. You have to get with, you know, you have to show up to the gym. You have to grind. You have to kill yourself day in and day out. And then obviously the mental aspect is recovering from those and telling yourself, like, if you had a bad day, like, you know, if you walk out the door, it's over. Like, that day's over. You got your ass kicked, and it doesn't matter by who. You just got to know that made you better that day. So I think they're pretty equal, man.
100%.
You alluded to earlier about obviously how you got into the sport. At what point do you think, or did you think, that you were good enough to reach the top and to sort of self-drive yourself to get out of bed and go to the gym on a day-to-day basis to compete against the highest contenders?
Man, right away, dude, this is what I wanted to do. You know, I took that first amateur fight, and I knew that one day, like, this is where I wanted to be. You know, I didn't know how I was going to get there, why I was going to get there, how many lumps and bruises. Like, I didn't think it was going to take freaking 10 years, you know, but I never gave up. And, you know, I've been at the cusp of the UFC, I feel like, for 6-7 years, you know, and I fought my first UFC vet 8 years ago. So, I mean, I've been at it a long time, and I just kept my nose to the grind, man. Like I said, having the positive people in your corner, you don't know how long it's going to take because you don't really know what they want. You know, you just get in at the right time. You get in when you're supposed to, you know, and I feel like it's all playing out how it's supposed to. You know, I'm getting in when I'm supposed to. I'm barely touching the surface of my prime. And so, yeah, man, I feel like everything's coming together at the right time.
Well, I mentioned some of your training partners before, Julian Marquez, Jason Witt. Who pushes you in sparring and training the furthest?
Man, that room's too good not to, man. Even my, you know, some of my guys up here at Premier Combat Center in Omaha push me on the daily, and then when I'm in camp, man, everybody's pushing everybody. Even the guys you haven't heard of are gonna, you know, that are on the rise, that are just making their pro debut, or still amateurs, push me on the daily basis. So yeah, man, that whole room pushes each other, man. You can't pinpoint one person.
What has been the highlight of your career to date?
To date, you know, probably last Saturday, man. Like, you know, that's the biggest win of my career. But getting that first UFC win was right up there. You know, getting Bruce Buffer announcing my name for the first time was right up there. You know what I mean? Getting the call to the UFC was right up there. But then along the way, you know, on this journey, I've had a lot of wins that ranked up there. But winning at the pinnacle in dominating fashion, I think ranks number one.
Well, my next question was going to be, how did you find out about yourself getting the UFC contract?
It's kind of a weird deal. So I was co-promoting a show here in Nebraska, and we were working on our main event. One of our main guy's opponent dropped out. It was a small town show, and so my manager called me. We were working on that show all week. I finally found an opponent out of Michigan, and like he calls me and he's just talking to me about this matchup for like a half hour, and then he's like, all right, we're getting ready to hang up, and this is like 11 at night, or it's probably 10 at night, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, you probably should get the cut and weight because we're going to the UFC next weekend and you're fighting Grant Dawson. That's exactly how he said it, man. And I was like, you know, my manager's been on this journey with me since my second amateur fight, bro. So like he's seen it all, man. He's one of my best friends, and so for him to be able to keep his cool through a whole conversation is beyond me, man. And he's like, man, I just knew if we didn't get this done right now, we weren't gonna get it done at all because I was gonna be too distracted. So yeah, it was like a nonchalant, like, oh, by the way, pack your bags, we're heading to Virginia, you know. And that was one of the craziest moments. Like I'm like freaking out and like jumping up, and he's like, oh yeah, Sean hasn't messaged back yet, and I'm like, what do you mean? Why'd you tell me? And so yeah, it was cool, man.
For those who don't know, what would you say is the best tool within your arsenal?
Man, just my transition game. You know, my top game, my transition to submissions, and I like my transition from my feet to the ground. I think everything's coming together. But I've always said like my transitions and scrambles and transitions make the fighter that I am.
100%. Has there ever been a low point in your career that sticks out to you now?
Fuck, man. When you've been at this a long time, like there's been a lot of low points, but I'd have to say, man, after I lost, like obviously Herbert Burns was like my shot, man. I was 22-8 or whatever I was, 22-9, and like not a lot of guys get their shot on the Contender Series at that record, man. And I thought it was like a make or break me. I worked, you know, I worked hard for that fight, and you know all the buildup that I thought laid on that fight, and everything that I thought mattered in that fight. After that fight, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to I don't know nothing else. I'm gonna have to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. Like I had no idea, man. And you know, my manager just said, then 2 days after I got home from Vegas, he's like, well, we got this fight offer against Terrence McKinney, another Contender Series vet, and all that. And I'm like, man, I don't know. Like I'm not unmotivated. Like I was never doing this just to do it. Like I'm never doing this just to. I love the sport, but I'm not going out there and competing not to reach the top, you know. And so like that's where it put me at that, and I was kind of depressed or whatever. But you know, like I said, having the right people in your corner, he snapped me out of it. We fought that fight. I got a win, and then I was like, okay, well maybe we can make this work, you know. And so that was kind of a low moment of my career where I'm just like, man, you know, it is what it is. But before then, you know, I lost to lot of people that I shouldn't have, man. If you go back and watch all my fights and my losses, there's probably one maybe two fights that like I wasn't controlling the whole fight before the fact that I wasn't controlling. So yeah, I mean the highs and lows of the sport are brutal.
As I alluded to before, Glory MMA have a fight for the world title this weekend in Megan Anderson. How do you see her fight going?
Man, everybody's counting her out, obviously. You know, that's what I feel like we're kind of known for down there, is everybody kind of counting us out and stuff. But I feel like she poses a lot of threat to Amanda. I feel like her range, she's big for 45. I feel like, you know, when Amanda fought Drained Randomine, it was kind of like she got tired on the feet and was getting beat up a little bit, and then she had to take it to the ground. And I feel like Megan's jiu-jitsu was better, and her takedown defense is better than what Drained Randomine was. So I feel like she poses a threat, and I feel like she can win a decision, man.
I don't want to ramble on about your teammates too much, but Jason Witt has a fight come March 13th. How do you see his one going?
Man, Jason's a workhorse, man. I mean, obviously, I see him going in there, getting it done in the second or third round, you know, with his pressure, his high pace. He hits hard, his grappling is good and stuff like that. And, you know, along with him, you know, I feel like he's going to go in there and get the win, obviously. And then, this weekend, you know, along with Megan, we got Tim Elliott going to go out there. And Tim's one of my good friends. I trained with him in Vegas for 3 years, and now I'm down there with him. I stay with him during fight camps and stuff. He's going to go out there, show that he's still one of the best in the world, you know. And, yeah, man, then after that, it just keeps going on, man. Grant Dawson, everybody, we're just going to keep rattling them off, bro.
I know you said before that you wanted to fight another 2-3 times. Well, 2-3 times within the year. Is there a date that you want to be in there by?
So we're at, you know, mid-May, June, you know, right? You know, mid-May, June, heal all the little stuff up, you know, like that happened during the fight. Yeah, other than that, I'm ready to get back in there and get back to fight camp and still keep making moves, man. Keep this momentum riding. So hopefully we can get something offered, get something worked out in May or June.
Well, last thing from myself, what one piece of advice would you give to a young mixed martial artist?
Find yourself, you know, find yourself a real gym, like somebody that's going to actually teach you. You know, I was lucky enough to walk into Premier Combat Center when I was 20 years old and was able to actually learn and improve every day. You know, a lot of these places you get places where you think you're getting coached right and you think you're doing this and all that stuff, but a lot of times coaches are full of shit. You know, some guy trained this random random thing for years and thinks he's a jiu-jitsu. But just get yourself in a good gym and surround yourself with positive people and just never give up, man. Like no matter what hits you, you know, I'm testament to, you know, never giving up. And like we've seen my bumps and bruises along the way. Have you got anything else to add to this, James?
I've literally got 2 more, if that's all right, Dak. I appreciate your time coming on, mate. You just mentioned then that the question just sort of popped into my head about Megan Anderson. Obviously, literally everyone in the MMA community is writing her off this weekend. And we've sort of seen people say, you know, if Amanda Nunes gets it done in dominant style, as she always does in the previous fights, that's pretty much the featherweight women's division done. You know, she's wiped out Felicia Spencer and Megan Anderson. But if Megan Anderson were to upset the masses and get the job done and become the new champion, can she sort of become that new champion to sort of bring new life into that 145 division?
Yeah, man, I feel like that's the same kind of aspect that happened with the 125 division. I mean, not too long ago, we were talking about the 125 division crumbling and they're giving up. All these 25ers are wondering if they're going to have a job next week and stuff. And then one fight changed the game, you know. And, you know, Megan's the thing is, she's gonna fight, and you know, she wins. Guess what? There's another rematch right off the bat, and that's even bigger. Puts a lot more attention on the 45ers women's division. I think, you know, you never know. You never know in this sport. You know, it's a guessing game. You know, you never know everybody's intentions. But I feel like she wins, it kind of saves the division a little bit, as far as they're gonna have to have rematches. More eyes are on there. People are realizing that not everybody's untouchable, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
And finally, for me, obviously, when you do retire, I know that's going to be a long, long, long way away. That's in the back of your mind right now. But how do you want the MMA fans to remember you by when you do hang up the gloves?
Man, hopefully I just motivate a lot of people that, I've been at this journey longer than the majority of people, and you can just do anything you put your mind to, whether it takes 3 years or 10 or 12 or whatever, as long as you stay to it, hard work trumps all, and you can't outwork the grind. So, yeah, man, I just want people to remember me as exciting, a fun, dominant fighter. So.
Yeah, no, that's literally all from me. I just want to wish you the best of luck. Hopefully you get the fight signed soon and we can see you back in the octagon. And myself and Mason will be supporting you across the pond in the UK. So thank you for your time, mate, and I hope you're keeping safe and well during these unprecedented times.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks,
guys.
Thanks again, man.
Have a good night.
Take care, mate, and you.